Hello and welcome. If you're a returning viewer to the channel, welcome back. We're going to be doing another box from TryHackMe today called Lookup. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by and checking me out. And hopefully you can learn something from this video today. And if you haven't, remember to subscribe and like down below. Looking at the statistics for the channel, still about 97% of viewers aren't subscribed, so let's get that number up. Okay, so like I said, today we're going to be doing a box from TryHackMe called Lookup. It was rated as an easy box. I think overall it was. Pretty enjoyable, pretty interesting. There was one part that did stump me. I'll point that out to you when we get to it. It took me a little bit to figure it out, but it was fun. Let's hop into it. Alrighty, so here we are on the page of the box lookup, and after you get the machine started, you scroll down, copy that IP address, we'll come to our terminal, and then just enter this command sudo nano etc host. We'll go in here, and I've got mine organized a bit here. We'll paste that IP address in, give it the address we want, save that. So now we should be able to come to our browser, just type in http://lookup.thm. Alright, as you can see, we're presented with a login page. So we know we do have a website. Let's go back in our terminal. Let's run Nmap, see if we can find anything else. Just running a basic quick little scan here, we see we've got two open ports, SSH and HTTP. Let's see if we can find anything more specific on these ports. Okay, and if you're not familiar with it, we'll just use this command, nmap -PN -SV -SC -P, the two ports, 22 and 80, and our target. Okay, so here's the results. SSH looks pretty standard, little outdated. The Apache is definitely an outdated one. Just looks to give the login page. Nothing else really useful here. Let's move on to the next part of footprinting, and let's see if we can enumerate any directories or files on this. And for our first run, we're going to be using the big.txt file from the web content of the seclist folder. And we're going to do the /fuzz on the end. And I'm going to have it append a .php to the end of each of these just to see if we might find anything with that. Okay, so with doing this, all we found was the index.php and the login.php. What to do when we don't really have much of a lead of where to go. Seeing that this is a login prompt, my first thought was SQL injection. Tried a few of those, none of those worked. But there was some interesting behavior of the website. Let's see if I can show it to you. So we go in here and type admin, and hit enter. You'll see it has this pop-up here saying wrong password, please try again. But if we try, say, Bob and admin, wrong username or password. So that's a key in the response that we can use to delineate if we can enumerate users or not, right? And for that, I have written this little script. And of course, I'll post this up on my GitHub, link in the description if you want to grab it. So we're going to import two libraries, request and multiprocessing. We're going to set our target as http lookup.thm, and it is login.php. The username file, we're going to use the names.txt file that's included from seclist. And we're going to make a function here called userCheck, and we'll pass a name and a target and the target to it. We'll set the data variable as username and password, and you can use Burp Suite to check when you do those logins to see how the data is passed, and that's what we're building this off of here. And then we'll do a response, send a post request with the information, and check to see if wrong password is indeed in that response. And then we'll just print out user found, and we'll print the name that I was associated with. Then down here, we're going to do a try statement, and we're going to open up the username file, read from it, put it into a list here, and then we're going to go through each user in that list. We're going to make sure that there is no new line character on it, because that's bad, especially when you get into passwords, it's very bad. And then we're going to start the multiprocessing process and send both the user and the target, tell it to start, and just in case it doesn't find the file for whatever reason, I just throwing this in here just so you know you've got a wrong path error. So alright, that's pretty simple and basic, so let's get to running it and see what we get. Okay, and to run it, we're just going to do python user_enum.py. Alrighty, it took around about a minute for it to run on this machine here, and it went through that entire file and it found admin and Josie. Well, admin may be a bit hard to break into, so let's go for the easier target, Josie first. Now, how are we going to enumerate that and see if we can find the password? For that, we're going to use Hydra. Now, if you've never used it before, pretty simple and straightforward tool and very efficient. So we're going to do the -L, lowercase l, for a single user since we know the name, and we'll do the -P since we want to actually pass a word list for the password. For this, we use the rocku.txt. We pass in the web address. We're going to tell it that we want to do a HTTP post, so it's form post, and then we pass in the login.php web page, and we give the data that we want to send, username, and in Hydra, this is how you pass in variables. So In this case, it'll pass in Josie there, and then password, pass in that, so whatever word, as it pulls it from the list, it'll just do it. And we're looking for the word wrong in the response, and basically the way this is set up is going to filter that out. So if it comes back with one that doesn't have the word wrong in the response, it'll assume that it was a successful login. And we're just going to tell it to be verbose so we can see some information. So let's run this, see what it finds. Alright, we got the password blurred out, but it does say that it found one. So we will just copy that, come over here. Alright, and it looks like it worked. We're in. If you're like me, you saw this and had no clue what you were looking at. And it's not just because it's the filter that I've got on to turn everything black into dark mode. So if I do this, turn it off, wow, that's bright. You can see there still isn't really much here. But I did notice it had this little box here with the question mark. So we click it, comes up, tells us it's Finder version 2.147. So after doing some digging, I did find that there were several vulnerabilities associated with this one. But the easiest thing I came across to use was using the Metasploitable console. So let's go jump back in our terminal and fire it. And if you're not familiar with it, to start it, you just do MSF console, hit enter, and grab you a drink for a minute because it usually takes a minute or two to launch. Alrighty, so it looks like I got the goose today. Interesting. Once this MSF, my version 6 comes up, you type in search, and then LF Finder, and the one we want to use is this last one, the PHP connector. So we'll just type in use for, we'll clear out the screen, show options. The biggest one here for us is going to be this R host. But normally you would do this as an IP address in most of these, but in this case we're not. And we will do that by using the set rhost command and telling it files.lookup.thm, hit enter. One other thing we need to change real quick is the lhost, that's going to be your machine, which that is my machine's internal IP address on my subnet, but not what we need for this, so let's change that. Okay, and simple enough, we just use the set lhost command for that, and then with those things set, we just type in run and see if we can exploit it. Alrighty, we got down to our interpreter prompt, so it looks like things are good, so let's just type in shell and see if we do get dropped into one. Okay, there you go, we see our shell. We can run the whoami command, we come back as www data. So let's stabilize the shell a little bit so we can maneuver a little bit easier in it. Okay, and we'll do that with Python, of course, just using the -c. Make sure you do the Python 3, and do import putty.spawn bin bash. There we go. One other thing to do is export term equals xterm. That's going to allow you to use the clear function, make the shell a little bit more stable. So let's see who all's on this machine. We'll do that with the cat command, and we're going to see if we can cat the password file. As you see, we can. We got root there. Going through everything looks about normal. Here we are, the data. Notice that we are user number 33. That's our user ID and group ID is 33 there. I'm looking down through here. Everything looks about normal till we get to here. Thing. And if we list out the home directory, we see indeed there is a folder for a user thing. So at this point, this is where you have a couple different routes you try to find how to move into this user thing. Normally my first thing is to go look at the user directory in the home folder to see if I can go into it and read files from it. In this case, I can access it, but I can't read anything from in it that would be actually useful. So have to jump to trying to find commands that have stickies on them, either sticky user or sticky group. And to find it, we'll use this. We use the find from the root folder throughout the entire system. We're going to tell it to look for a permission. We're going to do /4000, and any errors we get, we're going to send to null. Now, this 4000 here is going to be the sticky group user ID. And what that basically means is that when you run a command, do you run it like you're part of another group? Or if it was the 2000, which is sticky user ID, do you run it as if you're another user? You can also set this to /6000 to look for both. Okay, so it's done. And this is the point of where I got stuck for a while. So even as much as I use Linux on a daily basis with running my servers and using the home machine, there's just some things I'm going to miss. I started with the results from the user bin folder and went through each of these and tried out different tactics to see if I could pivot, elevate, or read files. I got through most of them, and then I realized that there's this sbin1 PWM. Now, having a bit of electronics background, I thought this was a pulse width module command. Wasn't sure what it was, but if we cat it out, it's a garbled mess because it's an executable, but there is some interesting things here. Error executing ID command. Error reading username from ID command. File home user dot passwords not found. So I was like, okay, what does all that mean? I thought, oh yeah, we can access the home folder of the think user. And if we take a look in there, using ls and doing the -al commands, we'll see everything. You can see, sure enough, he's got a passwords file hidden. Let's take a look at this PWM and see what we can figure out to do with. Okay, for starters, let's look at its permissions. Now here you can see we got read, write, and the sticky bit there is going to be the execute. And it's on the group as well. So this actually should have shown up if you did that 6000 run. And it is root. Interesting. So let's run it and see what happens. Okay, so indeed it is running the ID command. And it's looking for our user ID, which is 33. So it tells us that we're the user data and that we don't have a .password. We don't even have a folder in the home directory. So how can we manipulate this? So we can manipulate it with the path variable. So I've done echo $path on capital letters. And as you can see, it says user local sbin, user local bin, all this other stuff. What the path variable does in Linux, if you're not familiar with, and it works the same on Windows and Mac as well, is that it tells your system these are where executables are stored. So when you type in a command, in this case when you type in ID, it goes through there, looks, and tries to find the information. As you see here, it comes back, there's our user ID 33, and it says data in there. Now a way to manipulate this is if you add your own path on the front of this and make your own commands in there with the same name, because it goes in order down the line looking for the command. So what we're going to do is use the temp directory. And so how we add that to the path is this way. We're going to export path equals /temp : $path in capital letters. So our commands ran. So now what are we going to do in the temp directory? Well, we're going to make our own ID command. We're going to simply use the touch to make the file and temp/ID, and then we're going to use the echo command to put lines into the file. And for this first line we're going to do is the shebang bin bash, that way it knows it's a bash command. And then for our second line we're going to echo, and we're going to return the results of the normal ID command, but if you notice what's different is we're going to switch the user to think, because this is where it's getting the username to go search for that password file. And we'll use the double arrows out, which tells echo to append to a file, not overwrite. First one we did actually will overwrite the entire file and all of its contents. This tells echo to append it on the end of the file. And before I forget, we have to make our new file executable, and we'll do that with the chmod command. Plus X means we're going to add the executable function and the path to our file. So with that all out of the way, let's run the command and see what we get. Alrighty, it looks like it read the password file just fine, and it has a list here. And all you need to do is you can just drag and copy up to the top one there, Control-Shift-C to copy, open up a new file, pass list, whatever you want to call it, do Control-V to paste in there, Control-S to save it, and we've got a list of passwords that we can test against this think user. And just to show you real quick, when you hit Control-C to end your connection, you come back to this interpreter line. To get out, you simply just do exit, and then exit again. So we've got a new user think, we've got a password file. What are we going to do with it? How are we going to utilize that? We're going to use our buddy Hydra again. And for that, it's going to be super simple. Do the -L, user think, -P for that pass list that we just made. And we're going to tell it we want to check SSH and give it the FQDN of the server. You can also give it the IP address here. Both will work. Alrighty, so it looks like it did find a password for think. So we're just going to open up a new terminal. And we're just going to do SSH think at lookup.thm. So the server's already in my known server list. You may have to tell it yes. We put in that password that we got from Hydra. As you can see, we are now think. Of course, you can do the cat command and read the user file to get your first flag. Okay, so now we're the user. How to go about root. First thing you should always check when you get a user on a box is your sudo command to see if there's anything you can do. We'll do sudo tackl, and if you take a look, we get this user bin look that we can run. What is the look command? Come over here to the geeksforgeeks.org, one of my favorite websites, and it has a page actually on here talking about the look command. And as I state, look command in Linux is used to display the lines that begin with a specified string. It is essentially useful for searching through large files or lists, as it helps you locate entries efficiently. So basically a cleaner version of doing cat file name pipe to grep. You can just do one command without having to type the whole thing. Basically is what it is. So back here in our terminal, let's take a look at the permissions on this file so we can kind of get an idea of what we're going to be working with. So it is owned by root, and we do have execute on all three here, which is great. So basically what it looks like is that when we execute this command using sudo, we're going to be able to read files as root. There's only one file we're really interested in reading, isn't there? So the way you're going to do that is do sudo look, and we're going to do an empty string here. So this is where you would normally put in the string you're looking for. We're just going to leave it in. And we're going to point it to the root folder. It's that root.txt file that we want. And there you go. There's the root flag. And that's it. Simple box. There are a couple of spots there where you can get hung up if you're not familiar with how to research and look into things, but that's the point of doing these easy boxes, is to kind of get you used to that methodology of researching, finding things, and to notice things that are out of the ordinary that you normally would just look over, like I totally didn't. Anyways, hope you enjoyed your time. Hope you learned something. If you did, please give us a subscribe and a like, and thank you for stopping by. I'll see you next time.